What is up, everybody? In this video, we're going to talk about volume profile, how it pertains to my setups, what I'm looking for in my trading when it comes to volume profile. If you've not seen the first part of this series, the series on ranges, go watch that first and then come back to this second. This is an ongoing series. This is almost like a foundational free course. The reason I'm doing this is for those of you who are buying my prep. If you're interested in the prep, link in the description, or you can scan this QR code, go to my coffee, create a free coffee account, and then you need to go to the membership section. I post all of my preps in there. It's tens of hours of exclusive Fat Cat footage every month. And in that, you're going to learn how I set up these profiles every single day, what I'm looking for, contextual cues, and all the other setups and how that all sort of goes together, how I find high expected value trades, and what I'm looking for going into the next session. This video currently that you're going to watch, for those of you who are paying for the prep, thank you so much. You're the reason this video exists. Yes, I know it's free on YouTube. However, you guys are the reason this exists. So for those of you who are buying prep, this is going to allow you to understand what it is that I'm looking for when I get into a volume profile trade. Now, we're going to start off basic. We're going to go start from the roots of volume profile and then slowly go into what it is that I'm looking for, how I set them up, because I set them up completely different from other traders out there, and I'll explain all that. So without further ado, let's just fucking kick this shit off, shall we? All right, guys. So if you remember in the last video, we talked about trading ranges, right? In fact, somebody actually asked me in that video, how do you know when a range is setting up? Volume profile. Volume profile is structure. So without volume profile, this is a 240-minute chart, by the way. Looking at this really doesn't give me as much information as I need to make sound trading decisions. Sure, we have ranges, and sure, we know the longer ranges go on, the further they could potentially blow out. Again, that's something I talked about in this last video, which, again, you need to go fucking watch. So when it comes to profile, let's draw a profile, and let's go to the 30-second and draw one and explain what is going on with the volume profile. Okay, so I'm going to randomly draw one, and when I draw this volume profile, I drew it from this section all the way to the end. So on Sierra charts, you can draw these however you want, wherever you want, and this is very important in my specific trading. So as you can see, there's a range up here, right? And when we draw a profile, what you can see is on this range up here, most of the volume has transacted at the price of 93.50, 44.93.50. So most of the volume has transacted there, which is actually smack dab in the middle of this range. So the thing about volume profile is what it's doing. For those of you who aren't sure, I'm just going to go through this really quickly. At every single price, there's volume transacting. If you have not watched my How to Read a DOM video and you're not sure what order flow is, I have a video on time and sales as well. I recommend watching those two videos because on the depth of market and the time and sales, that is volume coming in and transacting. And that is what's creating bars on a chart or candlesticks to move, to go up and down. Now, in the last video where I talked about ranges, I showed you guys liquidity. Okay? So, you have market orders that's hitting the liquidity on the limits. And that's creating volume. So as that volume is coming through on the DOM and transactions are taking place, you're having volume being transacted at each tick or every price, okay? And that's what's happening on the volume profile. Okay, the only difference, and most of you that are, you know, when you first get in the trading, you probably have seen the volume histograms at the bottom. That simply shows you volume over time, which I don't think is as useful as volume going in a vertical fashion over horizontal, because really the market just goes up and down. It doesn't go sideways. All this sideways shit you're seeing on a chart is historical. It's old news, right? Now, I do believe all that old news, that historical price action is good for building context. However, markets just simply go up and down. And by using a volume profile, it allows me to now see where the price might get stuck on certain prices. Could the market go through this area really quick and fast? Or will the market start to chop and get stuck? Now, if the market chops and gets stuck, I'm less likely to actually take trades off those areas. I'm less likely to try to break out of this high node. This pink line is the highest node in this volume profile from where I've drawn it. This would be called a VPOC or a volume point of control. It is the highest node. It is the point where more volume has transacted than anywhere else, so therefore it is the point of control, or a POC, or a VPOC. Point of control, volume point of control. It could be one of those two things. It's the highest node. Now, notice how the price really chopped and traded around this highest node. So, here's what's happening over time, okay? Let's go all the way back, and let's pretend like this range doesn't exist yet, okay? And what I'm going to do is we're measuring the volume. We're measuring the bars from this point forward, okay? So as we go sideways, you can see that the POC is down here. The volume point of control is down here, right? Again, in each of these bars, so here's the thing. Each of these bars is only giving us a fraction of the information, right? It's showing you up and down movements. However, certain bars can look identical, right? For those of you who understand like candlestick formations or whatever, you can have a doji, right? You can have dojis, right? And they look identical, or bearish engulfing or bullish engulfing. However, the thing is, you can have these identical dojis or whatever the fuck. The thing is, the volume that is transacted on that one doji example could be drastically different than the volume that is transacted on a different doji. There could be more reloading on the depth of market. There could be more market orders hitting the limits, and the limits are reloading. So therefore, you could have higher or lower nodes, and those dojis are creating drastically different volumes. So therefore, the structure of the volume profile, even though the bars look similar, will be different. And that difference gives us information. Volume profile is like structure, and I'll be explaining what structure is here in a minute and why it's so important. Now let's watch the volume profile as I drag it out. This is a 30-second chart, by the way, in case you're wondering. So let's drag this every 30 seconds. Watch how it's transforming. Let me actually make it a little bit taller. Watch as this is transforming. Notice the point of control shifted. Down here, this was the point of control. Notice how the point of control has shifted. And this is what it would look like in real time. Now, obviously, I'm going back and forth, so that's a bit different. The point of control keeps shifting as we keep crossing in these bars. Bar by bar, notice how more and more volume has transacted here. Now, it makes sense more volume has transacted here because the market seems to be consolidating and getting stuck right there. But here's something interesting. Notice how the market blows out and we leave this range. Now, this is a range. This is why I said this video here is so fucking important to watch. That is that right there is a range, and we just blew out of it. I know it's hard to see. I'm going to move this so you can see the range. There's the range, right? Let's drag that back to the beginning of the range. So now we blow out of the range right here, okay? And then we start to come back in. Well, here's the deal. I know that this is the highest volumed area. So I know that if we're coming in really quick and I'm here, hypothetically speaking, I know that the center point of a range has high magnetic force. Remember in that video, I talk about how the center of a range has a high amount of magnetism to it. It's like the sun in the center of the universe. It has a gravitational pull. Well, same thing goes for the highest node. The highest node is where the most volume has transacted. So while the highest node isn't quite the center of the range here, I would put a lot of weight on that because that's where the most volume has transacted. That is what is deemed to be fair market or fair value. I'm stuttering. That is what is deemed to be fair value, okay? For instance, if I'm going to go buy milk at the store, and this is auction market theory 101. If I'm going to go buy milk at the store, I can go to a Costco and I can get it for a lot fucking cheaper. Okay, I can get it for a lot cheaper than I could at the normal grocery store because I'm a member and they got discounts. So that's like me buying down here. If I go to the corner, or if I go to the normal grocery store, this is what most everybody in society is paying. This is fair value. So that high node is fair value. That is what both sellers and buyers at this point in time are deeming to be a fair price. You're getting a discount down here if you're trying to buy, and you're getting a discount up here if you're trying to sell. Well, you know what I'm saying? You're not really getting a discount, but think of it like that because markets are two-way auctions. And that's the thing. Sellers deem this area to be a better deal for them. And then this is fair market. And down here is not such a good deal for sellers. And it's the opposite for buyers. This is a great deal for buyers. And this is fair price for buyers. And this is not a good price for buyers. And this is why you often see markets get stuck in ranges. Okay? Now the volume profile is structured. And it's also magnetic. And the thing is, a volume profile, and I think a lot of traders don't quite understand this, is a volume profile alone without understanding price bars, candles, or whatever, like this price action you are seeing where the price goes up and down, without really understanding that, you're missing half the equation. You can't have a volume profile unless you have price action. You need volume to transact. You need the market to move up and down to create a profile, okay? So you need both. So understanding both and how they commingle and interact with each other is so imperative and important, okay? So don't look at just volume profile. Like, how was that volume profile created with price bars, okay? And that's where a lot of traders I see who share this stuff aren't talking about the actual price action behind the profile. Now, as you can see, it goes down and then it bounces off. Now, that when you guys are watching me talk about trades, and I have these 3 videos where I show my trades on the hard right edge, and I'm narrating during a live trading session, go watch that shit. You may hear me use the term mid-pivot, okay? And what a mid-pivot is exactly what you're seeing here. The midpoint of this profile or this high node is pivoting. Now, when I say mid-pivot, understand this could apply to one of many different things. It could be mid-pivoting this range, or it could be mid-pivoting a high node or a point of control or volume point of control, VPOC, POC. It could be one of those two things. It could apply to other things as well, which we'll talk about in the future. So when you hear me say mid-pivot, it is simply price action is pivoting the middle of something important. Now, as you can see, when the price comes down, it pivots this point of control, and it wicks in dead center of this range actually, and then pivots off of it. Now, I wouldn't ever take a play like that. I wouldn't want to get long off of that because that's a little too risky. I don't, like I said in, this video, you shouldn't be trying to break out of the middle of a range. Same thing goes with profiles. Now, there is a time and place to do it, but for the most part, you shouldn't, because that is gravity, okay? Same thing with a profile as with a range. I want to be buying somewhere near the bottom of the profile in hopes it can come out, and somewhere near the top of the profile if I'm short bias in the hopes it will come out. Now, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll scale at the point of control or the mid of a range. Not necessarily the mid of a range. It depends on what the profile structure looks like, because there are times where you have a midpoint of a range, but the profile structure is completely different. The point of control is not at the mid of the range. It could be completely somewhere else because there might have been a massive amount of absorption or reloading. However, where the highest node is, typically that to me is a great place to scale. Otherwise, the trade may pivot and come back. Now, for me to want to long it there, that's not a good idea because it could get stuck there. I want to hit a trade that's going to probably go almost instantaneously. I prefer more instantaneous momentum. Now, there is a time and place where I know I need to sit in a trade because the volatility is low. However, correlations, we'll talk about that in another module. When that's all set up and aligned and I got multiple setups going, I'm more inclined to sitting in a trade longer. It really depends on the narrative and context, which, this specific lesson you're watching is going to help you learn a little thing or two about building some narrative. So anyways, that is something I would watch out for. Now let's keep expanding it. Here it is. It bangs into it. And then notice how it's making almost this curve shape, this perfectly bell curve shape. That is called a bell curve. In fact, that bell curve looks really good. It looks exactly like a bell curve. That is called curve maturity. And the more a profile makes that curve shape, the cleaner it is. Typically, the better and smoother trades will be off of that. Now, I got the term of curve maturity from Merritt Black with Nadro. If you guys are looking for a full-on auction market theory course, I do have a landing page you can go check out. It's link in the description. It is exclusively Fat Cat, and you get huge discounts on the Nadro stuff. So I got to give Merritt credit for the term profile maturity. Once I heard that, that was one of those things that stuck with me, and I'm like, holy shit. And he even says the same thing. The better the profile looks, just the better the trades are. It's just, that's how it is. If the profile's all jagged and fucked up looking, you're going to get a lot of this like pivoting, because a profile is structure. So let's continue to draw this profile out. Notice how now there's almost like, at this point, there's almost two separate curves. In fact, I would view this high node right here the same way I would view this high node. Sure, it's not fucking pink, and sure, it's not the highest node, but I know that there are two distribution curves right here, and that's the lowest node in this section. Low nodes are unpopular. Less volume has transacted there. And in my trading, I do like to play low nodes. That is volume profile 101. It's very basic shit, but it's still good shit. I know it's elementary to play a low node, but it still works. I like to play low nodes. Now, would I take any of these example setups I'm showing you in real life? No, because there's so much more to my trading system. These are just examples, and these are examples of I would do this. However, if other things are setting up in the other markets, and what are the other things showing me, because I don't look at just volume profile and price bars, I'm looking at other shit. But with that being said, the examples I'm giving you are true. I would take that mid pivot and scale there. Maybe not in this exact scenario, but in other scenarios, yes. Okay? So here's where we finish drawing the profile. Notice this. As the price goes, notice how we get to this low node and it pivots right the fuck off of it. And now we have, what's happening up here is we have a range down here, right? And do not confuse these yellow boxes with the yellow boxes you see in my normal trading. I simply want to highlight where the ranges are, okay? Remember how I highlighted the ranges in that last video? Let's go ahead and put another one of those. Okay, these yellow boxes mean something else in my normal trading, but since I have it as a hotkey, I'm simply using it to highlight ranges. I don't highlight ranges when I trade. This is just so you guys can see it. So here's the range high and the range low of this distribution zone, this curve, okay? Now we have a new range up here. Notice how we have a range up here, okay? Look at that. This was resistance, and then it became support. We'll talk, I do have an older video on support and resistance. If you guys do want to check that out, it's a good one. You guys also, you need to, when you go to my webpage or my YouTube, click on the live stream tab. There's a lot of videos in there that aren't under the video tab. Go to the live stream. A lot of my earlier videos are under the live tab because I used to just live stream everything. Because people are like, hey, some videos are missing. Check out this video on support and resistance. If you're interested in just seeing some order flow shit back in the day, it's a great. But anyways, support and resistance. It's classic. It's old school. Everybody uses support and resistance. And that's the thing. There's a great options trader by the name of John Locke who says, technical analysis works because we think it works. We as humans think all this shit works, so therefore it works. And algos are programmed off of this. Sure, your HFTs are programmed off speed, but there's plenty of algos that aren't HFTs. Okay, right here, resistance became support. Okay, so now we have a range setting up in this specific area. Okay, now you guys may hear me say things like bottom tick, top tick, okay? Right here, I would consider this area, there's a pivot here, and then there's a pivot here. We got a pivot up here and a pivot up here. This is actually a top tick, okay? So it top ticked right there. And not only is it top ticking, but it's top ticking right above this high node. There's a good chance this high node could pull the market in. And it does, and the price gets stuck there. We're going to talk about bottom tick, top ticks in a different module. However, this is a way for you just to kind of get an idea of what they are. So as we keep going, all of a sudden we get a bottom tick here. And we get a bottom tick on the low node. So typically when you get a bottom tick there, so the market pivoted here, by the way. The market pivoted right there for a reason. More buyers came in. More sellers came in here. So when we had this top tick, we went up by, I think exactly in a fucking tick in this example. Yeah, we went up. So we hit a high, we hit all the way up here. Market kept going up and down, and then they pushed by one tick and they couldn't find any extra buyers. And if you notice the order flow is really slow, now take this with a grain of salt because slow order flow, especially in the summertime season, can be deceiving. And plus, what are the other markets doing with correlation? Correlation's the last thing we need to worry about. But I need to keep embedding correlation into your head because of the people that go to my coffee page and buy the actual prep. I talk about correlations all the time. So it is important for them to understand this shit. So we didn't find fucking buyers up there. We went and explored. So when you have a range or a profile and it's in a value zone at some point we break out of the range. Remember I talked about range breakouts in this last video? I know I keep fucking referring it, but I know some of you ain't gone and watched it yet. So when we talk about, and if you forgot that, go back, guys. So when we have a breakout, we go into price discovery and we go look for another place to range and build another distribution zone. And we're going into price discovery. And when we break out, there's a flurry of buying if it's on the upside, or a flurry of selling, or the bids get weak, or the offers get weak, or there's a whole slew of combinations of shit. We went up by a tick and explored a new price, which was only a tick up, and there were no fucking buyers. So the market, when it top ticks or bottom ticks, generally speaking, there's a good chance it could go to the other side of the range, or at least to the midpoint of the range or the highest node, okay? Or any combination of that. Now, take that with a grain of salt, but that's good shit to hold in your head. If I was long, let's say I'm long down here or wherever, if I see that top tick and the market starts to come back in, I might scale. So I may scale at a mid pivot or a top tick. Those are two reasons for me to manage my trades. And this all ties into trade management 101. Do you see how I'm talking about a trading system as a whole? I have a good video on trading systems. You guys need to go watch it. It's a metaphor on, jungles and shit. It's just like a metaphor about shit that has nothing to do with trading, but it helps you understand the ecosystem. I don't know. I explained it better in that fucking video. But for the sake of you guys understanding what I'm doing and how I manage shit and the people that are buying the prep and you're trying to trade my shit, mid pivot scale, top tick scale. Generally, you should almost always scale a top tick. Now, there is a time when you may not need to do that, but it becomes very nuanced. And when I roll out a full-blown fucking paid course, we're going to take a lot of these concepts I'm sharing with you guys for free, and I'm going to really comb through it and show you executions around these things and how to do it, when not to do it, so you get a better, deeper understanding. Guys, and this is free, and you don't have to just buy the prep at my coffee. If you want to donate as little as $3 because you appreciate the fuck out of this video and the content I'm giving you guys, just donate $3. You don't have to buy prep. It helps the channel because this is another job, okay? I'm sitting here on a Saturday night and it's 9 p.m. making content, for fuck's sakes. And this is a whole nother fucking job. So those of you who appreciate it. So let's continue to go. So we have many things going on here. We have two ranges, two distribution zones. This is creating a narrative. This is how you create a story. This is how I create a story. So we get a bottom tick here. Not only are we getting a bottom tick in this region, but it's pivoting this low node, and it's pivoting right above this support and resistance area. Let's move this let's get rid of that profile for a second. Okay? And we know where this yellow line is. That was where the low node is. Let's draw this pink line. Okay? This, not only is that where the low node is, that's where we had clear resistance. And notice how the market came down and it tried to breach that resistance. Now, support and resistance levels, they're not always going to be clean. You're going to get a little bit of breaching, okay? However, it's still held up, but it also mid-pivoted that point of control. See, I'm creating a story here. There's multiple things in here that are telling me a story. So clearly this has turned into support. We come down, they hold it higher, we bottom tick. However, there's a new distribution curve up here, a new range, and that is fresher and newer. So that is now magnetic. That is going to keep pulling the market up, and when it gets to the high end, it's going to keep pulling the market down. Hence, when I see a top tick or bottom tick, I'm probably going to want to scale because there's a good chance it could flush all the way through, and I don't want to fucking give all that money back. So we bottom tick, just a tick over the support line. You need to look at this support area like this. So I'm going to expand this. okay? You need to be looking at this area as an area. Never look at support and resistance as one specific tick. You need to look at it as a rough area. Sometimes they'll blow through it and then come back and re-support it. Those are inventory flushes, and those can be deceiving. We'll do support and resistance in another video, but for the sake of understanding structure, we need to talk about this because really this trading system I'm sharing with you is circular, and we're just jumping into this circle and starting somewhere, okay? There's really no good place to start with learning how I trade other than jumping in the middle of this circle. But as we go through all the modules, it connects, and that's why you need to go through all this shit again, so that way it all makes sense, because it's one trading system. There's, like, everything is feeding off of everything. It's like rock, paper, scissors, right? If I'm telling somebody about rock, paper, scissors that has no idea what the fuck rock, paper, scissors is, I could go, well, rock beats scissors. But I didn't talk about scissors yet. Now I'll go scissors. Scissors beat paper, but I didn't talk about paper yet. Well, now you know rock will beat scissors. And then I go paper beats rock. And now you know there's the circle. Rock beats scissors, scissors beat paper. And here's something interesting for you guys. If you ever play rock, paper, scissors, statistically women throw scissors first every fucking time. And I've tested this shit. I have a large sample size of ladies I played with, and it's pretty fucking accurate. And men will typically throw rock. Just so you know, if you ever want to fucking beat somebody's ass in this shit. That's not always the case, but anyways, let's keep going. So I drew the profile here, okay? This is like what the profile looked like at this specific time in this specific market, okay? As I'm dragging it out, we bottom ticked. So the last thing, so we had a top tick, and then we bottom tick, and now we're re-ranging. So what this is telling me is there's a good chance, and since I have great bottom tick, top tick examples, I might as well talk about it. Since the last thing that happened was a bottom tick, I think there's a good chance it's going to attempt to retest this high. Okay, if the last thing that happened was a top tick, there's a good chance it could test even lower. But since the last thing that had happened between bottom ticks and top ticks was a bottom tick between the two, then there's a good chance it could go up. So since we're still ranging here, you know, this is support. And remember, buying the bottom of a range is a lot better than buying the middle of the range versus buying the top of a range. I talk about statistics in this video. And also, you're in this example, you're getting multiple factors of support. You got a low node you can lean on, okay? And you have this high node that could be pulling, and then you have this range that could be pulling. And at this point in time, you know there's a fucking range here. And since there's a bottom tick, that cues me off that this motherfucker may go up a little bit. And it does. And it tries to break out. It zips up. But what the fuck just now happened? What the fuck just happened? Well, check this out. Right here. Sure, this isn't the pink node. Sure, this isn't the highest. Sure, this isn't the VPOC. Okay, our curve looks like this. However, that's still a very prominent node, and this node is almost as large as that node. And what happens? We fucking mid-pivot. Okay? We fucking mid-pivot. So for me, a mid-pivot is now expected value. There's a good chance, and this is why I love mid-pivots off of the middle of a range or a profile point of control. Or VPOC or volume point of control. All interchangeable right there. Okay. The reason I love a mid pivot is once it mid pivots, while I don't want to trade it or I may want to scale there, the next time I think it's going to go into that profile where that mid pivot was, since it already mid pivoted, there's a high probability it won't do it again. Is that always the case? No. But most of the time, statistically speaking, that is the case. Now, I have a really good video on A+ trades where I talk about mid pivots. See, this is all a circle. This entire channel is a circle. And if you watch a lot of this shit, and I've had guys run through this channel twice, you're gonna get shit you missed the first time because you didn't know. In this video, I talk about how there were 2 mid pivots, and that does happen. That makes the trade even higher expected value. That makes my risk to reward even fucking better. Risk to reward is dynamic and it is dependent on expected value. I have a video on expected value. If you don't know what that is, you definitely must watch expected value. Because a lot of traders come out here and what they do is they just say, I take 5-to-1 risk reward trades. That's not how it works. The way the market is chopping and moving is telling you what your risk to reward is. You just don't say I do 5-to-1s. When somebody says that shit, I know they're not that advanced of a trader. No offense, guys. But it took me a long time to realize risk to reward is dependent on how this market is chopping. And the way the market chops and the way you read the chop is how you can determine if the risk to reward is getting better or not. Okay, hopefully all this shit is coming together. Guys, again, donate to the coffee. This is really, this shit, you don't find this shit anywhere else on YouTube. Everybody talks about generic bullshit. Okay, so let's continue this. So we get a mid pivot, right? There's no top ticks here. Okay, so we mid pivot this high node. That's still a very prominent node. In fact, at this point, I would argue to say that this entire area right here between these 2 high nodes, to me, how many ticks is that? That's about 5 ticks. Even though it dips in and has a lower noded area, since it dips in like that, I call those volcano tops. Okay? So with these volcano tops, I don't care that it's slightly lower noded. Between these high nodes, since they're real close together, I don't want to trade anywhere in that section. To me, I skew my vision, and that 5-tick range is 1 high node, and that's it. So notice it comes down again, and it mid pivots yet again. It mid pivots what? This other high node, right in this section. Okay. Let's drag this out as time goes on. All right. And then it comes up. Now, since we mid-pivoted twice, sure, we didn't get a top tick. If we had a top tick, that would be even better. But we didn't get a top tick. But as it's coming in close to the middle, and something's keying me off in the order flow, like, hey, this might be a good shot. I want to trade back to the middle of the range. I want to trade back to the center of the point of control. Since it mid-pivoted twice, and I just randomly picked this example, and I like how this is playing out, because in the A+ video, I literally talk about a dual mid-pivot shit, and I didn't realize this was about to happen. So, this is fun. So now there's a really high chance this motherfucker will go through. Is this a quality setup in the grand scheme of things? Probably not. But these concepts and principles still apply. And look at that. It fucking flushes the fuck down. Now, is it going to bottom tick? Well, it double bottoms right here. Now, here's the thing. Close enough, good enough for me. This is still a support zone. This still is a low node. Not only is it a low node, but it's also was resistance. Now it's support. So there's 2 factors to support to hold the market up right there. It might be a good idea, and it generally is a good idea to scale when you go to the other side of the range. Unless something else is really screaming at you otherwise. Okay? So as we continue to trade, notice that profile is getting larger and larger. Right here, triple bottom, really. Right here, we actually hold to the tick 3 fucking times. Okay? So, those of you who buy the prep may remember this shit right here. I'll draw this line right here. Typically, it's yellow, so let's make it yellow like we normally do in the prep sessions. So we know that yellow box is there. I accidentally deleted it. But right here, oops. So as soon as it tested it once, chart drawing properties, you guys know I'll dash dot it. Those of you who do prep, those of you who don't worry about it. This would be another module. Then it tested it a third time to the tick, because this is how I get like support and resistance. This would go dash dash because it's a third test. So for me, there's a good chance that if it comes into this section again, since it's testing to the tick 3 times, because I love small time frame shit because it's important. This is how you get real precise with entries and shit. Since it touched it 3 times, much like there was 2 mid pivots here, the next time it comes down here, there's a high probability it'll actually go through. So as we come up, holy fuck, what just happened here? Another fucking top tick. What does it fucking do? It almost goes to the other goddamn fucking side. Okay? Now notice after this double bottom, we kind of get stuck near the center of this profile. The price, again, that profile is real magnetic. So a range, so when you have a range, these ranges are never like pitch perfect. They have like this askew to them. Like it ranges here, then it stays up there, but then it stays down here. But overall, it's still a range. You know what I'm saying? And that profile is what's influencing it. That profile is why it's mid-pivoting or rejecting or something like that. Okay, so keep that in mind. Profile structure is so key here. So we know we have support and resistance here. We pivoted the same tick 3 fucking times. In fact, since it's doing all this bullshit, right? For those of you who do prep, it's like, okay, we could do this. And then we could do this. Okay. Now let's go back in time. This curve is starting to get very mature looking, very prominent. We're right here, right? Now notice this. Notice how when it wicks up right here, it mid-pivots this range right here. Now I know that this profile, you know, I know this curve is encompassing a lot more price, but for the sake of micro curves, there's a curve up here, or there's a range up here, there's a range down here, there's a range down here, there's a micro range up here. Notice how it just kind of mid-pivots right up there. And this is where, and you can mark out mid-pivots like I do. And this is how you can get really nuanced to create a story and nail things like at the right time. If shit, you know, this is what I'm doing. I'm hunting right now. Like, what is everything doing? So we come down, we double bottom, then we start to come up, right? It mid-pivoted this range. Now it's rejecting the bottom of this range. Now it double bottoms. Now as it's coming up and out, there's a good chance they're going to stop run that and then go across this range. Again, 2 mid-pivots. Now, that's not quite a mid-pivot. That's more so pivoting the bottom of the range, but still that's sort of supporty resistance. It's almost a mid-pivot, not quite. Close enough, good enough. Either way, there's a good chance that as soon as this double bottom comes in, what do? We reject the bottom of that range yet again. And we're actually kind of pivoting right off this high node right here. Now that I see it, notice that I'll drag this out. We come through by 2 ticks and we mid-pivot that. It's still a mid-pivot. Even if it breaches it by a tick or 2, it's a mid-pivot still. Okay, you got to be kind of loose with the tolerances. Boom, stop run right through that section. Now, would I want to get long here? No, because it's too risky because I'm near the center of this structure. However, I'm going to use this as context. Okay, so they blow it out. And then all of a sudden, what happens, guys? We'll delete this. What happens? They fucking top tick the fucking thing. Now, here's the deal. Double top, top tick. Okay, even though it goes beyond, it goes up 2 ticks, good enough. It could go 3 ticks. 4 ticks, I would say, is stretching it. Now, it depends on the size of the range. If the range is really tall, it could be a few points. If we're looking at a daily chart, a top tick could be multiple points. The larger the range, the higher the time frame, the more points a top tick could be a top tick. If this was to go up another tick, well, then it's kind of not a top tick anymore, and it might be stretching it that I would be a little hesitant. And don't ever just try to nail a top tick. Try to get it on the right side of the V or after it starts to rotate back in. Usually that's safer. Lance Brightstein talks about that shit. Top tick. And not only is it a bigger top tick, right? The range is expanding. The range is getting taller. The profile is getting taller. It's the top tick of this. And then what does it do? It fucking flushes all the way down. For those of you who do prep, since it pivots that same exact tick, what happens? It goes to dash dot. And this is to clear up the people that buy prep. Okay. So now we have a dash dot. Now there are two distribution curves here. Now here's the thing. Since that low node's there and there are two distribution curves, what I personally like to do is take this profile and bring it in until it looks like a curve. I don't want to see that second distribution curve. Now I know where the value area high and value area low is. This is a first standard deviation move. Most of the price action should happen within this first standard deviation. Now the thing is, this curve is still being developed. It's not an old curve. It's not a prior curve. So therefore, you need to be careful with these lines, and you don't really want to fuck with it until after the fact. This is going to make more sense here later, okay? Now, here's the deal. There's a curve down here as well. So I could cut this off and leave a curve like that. Now, for those of you who see the white boxes on my prep and all that bullshit, this is exactly what it is. All I'm doing is drawing the white box and the value zone, okay? So we know there's a curve there. Now, I don't need to cut this off to know where the value zone is. I can look at the curve and go, hey, the value zone is somewhere here and here. I can just eyeball that shit. But these are two distribution zones. And I do want to know, hey, where's that low node? And typically, you'll see red lines, which signify low nodes. Now, those low nodes aren't necessarily intraday low nodes because I run composites, which I'll talk about here in a bit. Now, here's the deal. We top tick, it comes down, dash dot, it's not bottom ticking. It should fucking bottom tick. It's not fucking bottom ticking. But that doesn't always happen. In a perfect world, you know, it's overdue for a bottom tick, in my opinion. This is the last bottom tick. So we're here, and then another top tick. This is starting to look like it might want to break out at this point to the high side, but I don't know, right? So we top tick again. This curve is getting bigger and bigger, and this is obviously the close. So these bars are over-exaggerated. You don't really want to trade the close. Here we go, another top tick. And we have our dash dot here. It pivoted here, so this goes dash dash for those of you. And we'll talk about this dash dot shit in another module. But for the sake of understanding, this is major support and resistance, and there's a high probability that since these dash dashes are there, that means the market had pivoted the same tick 3 times or more. There's a high probability there's going to be a stop run at that point. And sure as a fuck shit, another top tick. And this is when I would actually potentially look for the breakout. As soon as it starts busting through this section, okay? It depends what the other markets are doing. Are they ready to go? You know what I mean? And then you have a series of 3 top ticks. And not only should it break through here, but it should run even further, which it does. But again, this is a close. This is end of month. And then it blows through. In fact, it blows through this distribution curve. And what I would do is after it blows through, I would draw the profile up to this point. where this range is up here, right there. Okay, I'm going to erase all of the lines. I would draw, and this has pretty good curve maturity. And I'm actually going to draw this for my prep, by the way, guys. And it needs to be white. Because that represents a value zone. So now we have a curve right here. This represents a value zone, okay? So here's the deal. And I might have to break this video up into multiple parts. The price could come up and pivot off of that. That would be expected value 1. I don't want to trade into this curve. I want to make sure it fails. I want to see it do that. I want to see it mid-pivot. Or hell, it could almost get to target and then pivot. Okay? And once it does that, there's a good chance on the next go, it could do one of these 3 scenarios or something similar. Once it does that, that is now expected value 1. And what I want to do is, since this is a range, it's a profile, and the center of this high node matches the center of this range, there's a good chance that we're going to fucking go through it. There's a good chance after it fails that we're going to go all the way through it. And I'm going to scale or exit at the top of this. Not always. It depends. That's another reason to scale. So this is now a PVA. This is a prior value area. Credit to Merritt Black for coming up with the term PVA. So this is a prior value area. This is now established curve. These green lines are solid, okay? This is a first standard deviation, okay? So most of the price action happened in this first standard deviation. So there's a good chance that if we come up in this curve, it's going to go all the way to the other side. And once it goes to the other side, what do? I delete it, and it's gone forever. Because when you have these ranges that establish like this, okay, when you have an established range like that, there's always usually a time where it gets completely flushed the fuck out. We sat there for hours and went sideways. And then we go away from it, and then one day we come back and we just go through it like nothing ever happened. And those are one of my playbook setups, is going through those curves, okay? Let's erase the lines. Now let's actually look at the entire session here as it's panning out and just narrate it. So this is the, hypothetically, there's like a curve down here. So I would draw a profile, and this is how I would draw these things. There's a curve here, and then it breaks out. Notice how it breaks out, and it's creating a second curve. So what I would do is pull this back until it's just a curve, okay? Now, here's the thing. Some traders use RTH profiles. I do as well. That means your charts start creating a new profile at the start of the session. Some traders use the overnight profile. Okay, I use several profiles. I use a 3-year profile, which we're not really going to talk about in this video, and I use composites as well. Okay, the thing about it is the auction, because this is when you create a bell curve and when you start ranging, that's fair value, and the market is auctioning back and forth. Again, it goes sideways, finds fair value, goes into price discovery, breaks out, and it finds prior value and either accepts it or rejects it, or it creates new value, okay? And then it goes sideways again, then it goes back in the price discovery and does the whole cycle over and over again. And intraday on a small time frame, you can see that happening over and over. The thing about bell curves is you can see them on all time frames. The smaller the time frame, the cleaner the bell curve, the more mature it usually is. The higher the time frame, the sloppier it looks. Same thing goes with like actual ranges. I talk about it in the range video. For fuck's sakes, watch it. And by the way, this is the type of shit you're going to be paying for in a course like this deep. That's why I said this shit is going to be many hours long. We're already 55 minutes in, and I have not scratched the surface of this shit. Oops, didn't mean to do that. So, this to me is a curve. Now, most traders would just keep letting the fucking thing go. They would let the RTH session just keep going. And I know this is before the market is open, but I want to know about this area. And again, and here's the thing. I want, typically, when you notice a range, it's going to build a clean curve. And that range is a range for a reason. Because that's a fucking distribution area. That is a value area. And typically, I'm looking on the charts for ranges, and then I draw a curve on it. And if the curve looks really clean, I'll leave it, and I'll probably trade it. Okay? When this breaks out, it has now created a second distribution zone, a new range. All right? So these fair value zones on this profile, these aren't accurate. So you got to dial it back. And here's the thing, guys. Distribution zones or auction market theory doesn't give a fuck about price or time. So those of you who are having curves that create new curves every 30 minutes or at the top of the hour or something like that, you're fragmentating the auction curve. You're breaking up into chunks, and therefore you're not able to see it for what it really is in the whole picture because you're breaking it up by doing that. And I don't think that's a good idea. For instance, this curve down here, it starts at 7:31 and then it ends at 8:03. Okay? So it's not doing it, yeah, it does it close to the top of the hour and whatever. But either way, you'll see. So what I would do is I would draw this. It's broken out. These value zones will no longer be moving up and down. Because here's the problem. If I'm trying to trade in this range right now, the value zones keep moving up and down. So you're going to get false signals and shit, and they're not good to trade when that's happening. But once the market breaks out, you know, it's more so down here. And this curve doesn't look that good. It looks good, but not that good. Boom. All right, now we have a new distribution zone. Okay, right up here, right? Now here's the thing. It melts, and what it does is it pivots literally one tick off the top of this. I would still count that as a test. It's close enough, good enough, okay? Remember, these things are never going to do shit to the tick for the most part because it's the fucking markets. And those of you who buy my prep at the coffee, this is how I'm coming up with these EV zones on value curves. Right? So here's what I would do. Modify text, and I would put EV 1, and then I want, and I used to do this. I'm starting to do this again. So it started at 7:30, and it ends about 8:02. So this is a 30-minute value area. It took 30 minutes to create this value area. So it's tested the top of the value area once, and that value area is 30 minutes. It is, for me, it's important to timestamp how long did that range get created. Because if this was a 2-hour range, then the risk to reward might be better to where when it does go through, it's going to run even further than a range that was created only in 30 minutes or 10 minutes. If the range is the same height, then that white box will be the same height. And that range could be, the same height on a 30-minute, 2-hour range, 3-hour range. It could be all the same height. However, in the range video, I talk about the longer something goes on for, the more likelihood that once it goes, it's like a spring being wound up. It's going to blow out and go, and it's going to go even fucking further. Okay? So if that's a 3-hour range, it would be 3H. If this is anything less than 10 minutes, I wouldn't draw shit here. I might, but under certain circumstances, I need at least 10 minutes to draw anything. So it's pivoted here, so it gets an EV1 rating, and it's 30 minutes long. So that gives me an idea about how far it might push out. If it was a 3-hour, I might be inclined to holding it further, depending on what? The fucking correlations. I've said that a million times. So the start of this session is about 8:30s here. We'll just keep going from this point forward because I know the market goes up. So boom, the market goes up. There's the open. So this is why I wouldn't just have an RTH profile, because there's clearly a range right here. Now notice how it breaks up and it starts creating a new distribution zone. Once I notice that it's creating a new distribution zone, pull this back right to where it has that bell curve shape. It's not the most beautiful curve, but it looks like a curve. And the range isn't the most beautiful range. So therefore, this isn't really that quality of a fucking shit. So therefore, when it trades through it or on it, it's probably not as good as a cleaner on a more modelish range and a modelish curve. It's not model looking. It's not a super model curve. It looks like somebody that fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down. And if that's you in real life, I'm sorry that you have a face only your mother could love. But Fat Cat loves you no matter what you look like, just so you know. So there you go. There's a curve there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this line. And at this time, I'm going to put EV0 because it's not pulled back. And how long did that range take to build? 8:03 to 40 minutes, roughly. We don't need to be perfect. Close enough, good enough. 40-minute. Okay. Now here's the deal. You'll see me leave these curves like this any fucking day now. But for those of you that buy the prep, and I know this is off a little bit, let me dial it back. There you go. I also want to have an overall curve that continues to go, which it'll show up. And this is where things get noisy as shit. And the reason being, and what you guys notice in prep is I'm going to go in here on this curve, and this will make sense. Volume profile setting, go to value area, or go to 55 and go to none. I want to get rid of those green lines because those aren't, I just can't have those. And the reason I have this curve here is because I want to know where the low nodes are. I want to know where the lowest nodes are because I want to lean on those like in that first example. So as we continue to go up, because here's the deal. If I just have these two curves staggered like that, I don't really know if there's a low node there. Hence the reason I'll have very noisy charts. I want to know what the curve looks like, where it's at, and this helps me do that. But I also want to know where the lowest nodes are, for the sake of doing this, I don't usually do RTH low nodes like this. They could be used for those of you who buy prep, so you could lean on these things. There you go. Market continues to go up, up, up. Well, hell, it's putting in a channel, actually. Okay. There is really no sideways price action. There's a little one right here. Is it 10 minutes? So it's 8:48. It needs to end at 9. Okay, yeah, it could be a 10-minute curve. So notice there's a good range right here. We'll draw this. Okay. And that's a decent looking curve. Now, it's not all that great to trade because it's only worth 8 fucking ticks. Okay? But we can leverage that to get into other setups, okay? We can leverage that to get into bigger picture setups. So, again, same concept. I like to drag these boxes about there. I'm going to put the white bar on it. Modify text. It's EV0 at the time, and it's a 10-minute curve. So it's not all that fucking good. So we have structure right here, the main structure. This hypothetically is what the RTH session is starting to look like. And I know my fat fucking head's covering some shit. Don't worry about it. Right, then we come up here. There seems to be another range setting up there. All of a sudden we come through and what the fuck? Now it's testing the top of this area right here. So as soon as it touches it, I don't want to trade short through that. Remember, I usually want to see it pivot. So that gets an EV1 rating. And then lo and fucking behold, it almost goes all the way to the other side. Okay? Now, it's not mid-rolling, but I'm still going to give it a mid-roll rating. It's actually, notice how it pivots like 2 ticks off that high node right there. There you fucking go. Again, so that's why I gave it the mid-roll rating, because it pivots. It almost made it to target, so there's a high chance that if it comes through again, it'll actually bust through. There's something going on up here. There seems to be a range here. I'll overdraw the profile on the left and right flanks. And then what I want to do is capture just this upper range. Just want to capture just this upper range. The curve doesn't look quite good. It needs to be cut off right here. There you go. That's a pretty good curve. And it's covering a good range, and that's a really solid range. But again, guys, look. This curve right here starts at 8:03. Oh, I already did that one. And it ends at 8:39. This curve starts at 8:48, and it ends at 9:02. This curve starts at 9:07 and ends at 9:35. This is why you shouldn't have new curves being created at the top of an hour, bottom of the hour, because you're fragmentating this shit, because the auction doesn't care about top of the hour or bottom of the hour. And when I say the auction, I'm talking about these distribution zones. They don't give a fuck. You'll see them rotate at the most bizarre hour. And when you have new curves or something, you're fragmentating your information. Therefore, you're not seeing it for what it is. Nobody talks about this shit, guys. And this is all from experience. Okay, so this is a good curve. Right here, it's blowing out into this. Oh my God, what did it fucking do? What is it doing right here, guys? I swear, I literally am just picking Friday. We could do this all day long, by the way. Oh, you cherry picked it, fat cat. No, I didn't fucking cherry pick. I'm literally, when I make these videos, I just shoot from the hip. I don't like just go, oh yeah, oh this. I just pick something. All right. So we're going to label this modify text EV1. How many times did it pivot? Okay, this curve is 9:07 to 9:35. We're going to give it a 30-minute rating. That's a good curve. That's a good goddamn fucking curve right there. Okay, and here's the overall structure. We know that at this point in time, there's a low node right here. I'll copy and adjust this since it's red. We're going to kind of highlight where the most low nodes are. Copy and adjust. I'm literally giving you guys so much secret sauce and I'm not getting paid for this. Go donate or sign up for the motherfucking prep where you get to see this. What I'm doing right now. Every fucking day, pretty much. The holidays are coming up, so not around the holiday. Sorry. But for the most part, 5 days a week. Hours of this shit. And I'm going to start looking at Dow Jones. So I'm going to be introducing that at some point. Because correlations, baby. Everybody's like, hey, you got to get on this Dow Jones. So buy the prep or fucking give me $3 for this that I put on YouTube. That's only going to probably make me $2 in ad revenue. On a Saturday night at fucking 10. All right. So these are the lowest nodes that really stick out to me in the overall RTH structure, which some people, that's all they're fucking looking at. Right? Now, we do want to keep that RTH structure up because at some point when the market starts racking, which we're about to get into that this could all like merge and turn into one giant profile, because what you'll see is these fragmented smaller curves like you're seeing now. And then over time, all the area in between gets filled in and then it morphs. Looks like shit, and then it starts to morph into a bigger, broader curve. That's how bigger, broader composites are formed, if you know what that is. If not, don't worry, we'll do a module on it. Or you can look it up. I don't have a video on that, really, but I will. So, remember, we come in here, this becomes an EV1 rating. EV1 on this. Now it's banging between the two curves. Well, this one almost made it to target. Now it's like just kind of mushing up on it. So what I could do is, hey, this motherfucker, after it pivots here, because I really watch the ping-ponging of markets, it's like, okay, it almost made it to target here, it mid-pivoted, and it's mid-pivoting here. This would actually give me a lot of confidence to get in a short here and let the trade breathe a little bit, and then sure as the fuck shit, it blows through. I might scale there. And then it just starts rotating. Where's it actually rotating? Well, fuck, it's rotating a tick above this very prominent fucking low node. Yeah, then touch it to the tick. But it's rotating right off of that, which also is a very high-noded area as well, an unusually high-node cluster. So it's sort of mid-pivoting that shit. And then all of a sudden, you know, what does it do? It comes back up. So once it flushes through that section, this dies. These curves, they only have they have a shelf life. Once it's dead, it's dead. Because if I leave that curve up there and continue to attempt to trade it, the trades get worse and worse. And Merritt Black from Apteros in his Natro course, again, I have a landing page. Check it out if you want to get discounts. These are Fat Cat exclusive discounts, by the way. This is where I learned about how you trade the damn curve once. Because it does turn into shit after so many times. We flush, we come down here. And then we're popping back up. Now, interestingly enough, there's kind of a range here, but if I was to draw a curve, it would look like shit. That's hypothetically a top tick. Would I want to be getting along here? Here, not necessarily. But now this goes to an EV2. Just because it tested it once doesn't mean I'm going to want to go at it at the second go. Because again, what guys? What are the other markets doing? Okay. So EV2 comes back down. I guarantee if I draw a profile here, it'll look like shit. Give it a minute. It kind of does look like shit. So we want to just get rid of it. Like, this isn't a good range that I know that just, it's a waste of time to draw a curve. This is unfolding. Also, we're mid-pivoting this low node as well. We're not just mid-pivoting a value zone, but we're also mid-pivoting a intraday low node. So what you can this is kind of a composite. The RTH session is hypothetically a composite of these smaller distribution curves that are being put in play. And you just scale that up on higher time frames. Because in this video that I keep fucking telling you guys to watch, the markets are fractal, bell curves, volume profiles are also fucking fractal, just like ranges. Welcome to the fucking matrix, boys. All right? Eat the goddamn red pill or put it in your ass like a suppository. And after you do that, you can go to my coffee and get some prep. Okay? And then escape the matrix or whatever the fuck. So here we go. I like how I told you guys to like shove something up your fucking ass and somebody's like, oh, go. That's funny. I'm going to go buy prep now. See, here's the thing, guys. I set the expectations with you guys so low in my mannerisms that when I say some off-the-wall shit, it doesn't faze you guys. You're like, Fat Cat would say that. That if I just carried myself clean this entire time since I started this YouTube channel, if I was just some clean talking fucking freshly cut guy and I said, hey, go shove a pill up your ass, you guys would freak out. But since I'm Fat Cat and I talk like this all the time, it's funny and you expect it. So there you go. I set the bar real fucking low. So that way when I say some stupid shit, you guys think it's funny. Or you're like not fazed by it. All right. Now notice this. I gotta get out of here. So I'm gonna disappear. I'm gonna scram. Sorry. Okay. There's a bigger curve being created in this section. So what I'm gonna do is we know there's a curve down here. Let's just delete it for the sake of being able to see what the fuck is happening. And we'll delete that one as well. We know there's value zones down there. You don't have to necessarily keep them on. I just do because I like the shape of the curve and it, I don't know, a good looking curve looks like a great pair of tits. No offense, ladies, I'm just saying. Maybe it looks like a nice fucking man's ass and a pair of tight Levi's for you. Same shape, right? Because I know you ladies like a man with a nice fucking rumpus. All right, so for the ladies on the channel, think of it like that. Right? Cowboy butts drive me nuts. So, here we go. Ah, fuck, I just showed up again. There we go. Notice how it's actually creating a bigger fucking curve up here at this point. So, hypothetically, there's a value zone being created up in this section. Notice, though, how it was comprised of all this smaller shit. Okay? So at some point, I'm going to not want to play these smaller profiles. So again, we have high EV here. We have a point of control at this destination, which for those of you who do the prep, this may seem familiar. I use it mostly on composites, not intraday, but it couldn't be used intraday. So this dotted line generally represents a point of control. You're going to have to want to be careful because now they're creating a high node right here. Now, even though this is an EV2, in this specific case, since there is a curve, and I'll draw this line like so we know where the curve is. And I'm going to come back into the picture. What's up? Remember what I said? This whole area kind of has high nodes. And the curve at this point in time, we'll drag it back. Oh, okay, this is where we're starting to breach it. So hypothetically, there isn't high nodes there. But we're going to copy and adjust this and move it right here. Okay, and I'm pretending I don't see the bars on the right. Okay, this is the difference between hindsight and back testing without hindsight. I'm just merely looking at the curve structure up at this point and leaning on that. So even though this has good EV, this isn't a good idea to actually go long here because now you're fighting the intraday point of control. And this is where the RTH profile does matter and why you should have an RTH profile. Because at the start of every session, the liquidity in the book, remember how I show you how the book is real thick in this video? The liquidity in that book thickens up because in the overnight, the book is real thin. The DOM is real thin. It thickens up during the RTH session. And then you have a flurry of volume just flowing in drastically at the start of the market. And then it flows out at the close of the market. The RTH session or regular trading hours, or I live in Texas, so 8:30 to 3 is normal trading hours. It's 9:30 to 4 in New York. During regular trading hours, because of the way the volume comes in at the start of the session and leaves at the start of the session, that's fresh volume. RTH session trumps everything else. What does that mean? It trumps composites. It trumps structure from other days, that you really need to pay attention to the price action and the structure for the RTH session and really play into that shit, especially if you're trying to get into older structure, older profiles from other days. Like these prior value areas can be from other days. You don't want to just trade them to trade them, even though the EV is good. You want to really lean on what's happening in today's session. So going back to this, since the VPOC, the highest node of the trading session, is right here, and there's clearly a curve, and this is pretty much the center of this curve. While it's not quite a range yet, same thing what I talked about in this video. I don't want to trade from the center out. So just because this isn't quite the middle of a range, same concept applies. I don't want to trade from the center of a range, the POC out. So even though this looks good, and I talk about more of it in this video, even though that looks good and that could be a good trade, in the context of what is happening now, in the narrative that I've built out, okay, a lot of my course is going to be about building out narrative and context with price action, because this is, once you have solid storytelling skills, then you actually know when to hold, when not to hold, how to manage, when the risk reward is better. That's how you actually develop confidence instead of just trading bullshit and you have no idea what's happening. Most traders have no fucking clue what the fuck is going on. Okay, guys, this is what you're paying for, is like deep shit like this. Okay, and you're getting good and those of you who are supporting the prep, you're supporting this. This is why I'm making this video, is because some of you supported the fucking prep. Okay, I know as much, some of you guys may want to be like, hey, I wish this was exclusive because yeah, but you're getting hours of prep work and you're seeing more and more of this because you need to see a lot of this to really grasp it and understand it. I know this video is good and you're getting a lot from it, but you need to see it on the daily basis and you need to see how the market is setting up, because there's certain setups that may be weeks in the making or days, and that's very, like, just seeing how I'm doing it every day is going to help you understand this shit better. So, you know, and those of you who are paying for this shit, we got to give back to the community, and your money is allowing this shit to come back to the community, and this, because we have to do shit for the community. I've done shit for years for the community. You got to do shit for the community. And when you guys make a lot of fucking money, not everybody's the failure rate is high. It's 95% or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Not all of you is gonna make it, but those few of you that do make it in this, you guys need to give back to the community, not the trading community. You guys need to give back to the community outside of this. You know, help people in fucking need. Like, you guys should do that stuff. You don't have to, but like, you know, once you make it and you have all this money flowing in, you know how hard it was to get to this point. Do shit for the less fortunate. And I'm saying this because I've been piss poor in my life before. And when you have people that come and help you out and show you things like this, sure, I'm not giving you guys money, but I'm giving you knowledge. It's important to give back. Okay, it is. And I know I just went off on a morality thing, But I just want you guys to understand that when you buy the prep, you're giving back through me by making this, which in turn, this video is helping you guys that buy the prep. Okay? There will be more exclusive videos for the prep guys in the future, but I need to bang out a bunch of modules so that way you guys understand the prep more. And that way when people buy the prep, they're going in more clear, because some of you that are buying the prep, it might be too much. So hopefully that makes sense, guys. And we're all helping each other out here. So thank you so much. I just needed to get, talk about that. So this is why I necessarily wouldn't want to trade that. So as this continues to go, notice how it's struggling to get up there, because these high nodes right here are continuously sucking the price back in right here. It's magnetic. So now you're going to have quite a few problems attempting to get into this. So we do know we pivoted right near this low node. So we do want to keep that in mind. So as we continue to go, we're going to continue to expand the composite. And then all of a sudden it makes it all the way across. Don't want to trade that, but we can get rid of it, right? And just because I wouldn't want to trade that curve doesn't mean I shouldn't draw it. Don't be fucking lazy. You need to for contextual cueing. Like, hey, this could flush through. I want to see it flush through before I go for a short so they clear all that inventory out. So at this point, there are micro ranges being put in play. At this point, since there's clearly a curve here and it looks like a motherfucking curve, just because it might put in these micro ranges, I don't want to draw micro curves on micro ranges. I will near the bottom or near the top, and then I will attempt to leverage those. Remember, this is going from higher time frame to smaller. So as we continue to have this curve expand out, we can actually get rid of this low node marker, because hypothetically, right here, it doesn't matter that there's low nodes because it's being flanked by high nodes. So at this point, I can copy and adjust this here. And I would look at this entire range, and I don't know how many ticks it is. I'll find out for you guys. It's a 13 tick range. I would not want to trade anywhere in that, and I would consider that all one high fucking node, okay? So as we come down, this thing is expanding out. Then it's starting to rest on those low nodes down here. Now we can do what we did before, guys. Remember, we do this shit. So that pivoted off of that area right there. I could be wasting time because I think this just continues to go up. But for the sake of the people that buy prop, this will go dash dot. Because we pivoted at the same tick. And then we would want to kind of look at this range down here. Kind of put that, I know it's overlaying. So that would be a dash. How many times does it pivot there? Like 4 or 5 times. So that would be dash dash, and we'll leave it at that. That's 3 or more test. Again, I'll talk about all this bullshit in another thing, but for the sake of building out context, there's a dash dash. So we know there's support resistance here, and this is where I'd go. Those of you who go in prep, this would be pivot 2 or probe or 2 probes. 2 probes. We would put a 2 probes rating on that. I'm not explaining that in this video. That's for the prep guys. So 2 probes. So we know. And a bottom ticked as well. So, we could put BT for bottom tick, because hypothetically, this is a bigger range and it does bottom tick in this section. Would I want along that section? Not necessarily. Notice the profile is starting to get a little wacky. It's starting to not look like a curve at this point, but then it goes up. Something happened here. Clearly it was support, became resistance, and then it became support again. That's vital information. And what we can do is draw a curve here. We know there's a micro curve here. And just because it bottom ticks doesn't necessarily mean I would want to long it. Now this curve, so to me, this is still a good curve. This is like a B-shaped curve. Notice how like the high node isn't the mid of that range. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And what that's telling me is there was a lot of reloading down there. Somebody really attempted to hold the market up. So there was an iceberg order. And I can tell you that without even looking at the DOM. By price action and having DOM experience, I know what that means by watching the two together. To me, that's still a curve. That's like a B-shaped curve. It looks like a lowercase b, maybe not. But it's still a good curve because it's like half of a curve. So hypothetically, we should breach it and maybe rotate this 7250. This is me essentially doing prep now. This is what you buy. So I would use this because it's half of a curve, and then we're gonna give it an EV. We're gonna give it an EV 0. But before we do, how many minutes was that? 9:39 to 56, so 49. We're gonna just say 15 minutes. So EV 0, 15 minutes. I want to know about that, and since hypothetically this is a larger curve, it's ugly now. It looked good before this happened, but hypothetically this is still a curve. I want to leverage this range near the low and leverage the gravitational force of this high node and going back into this range. Do you see how this is starting to connect now? So I would want to start to maybe get short in this section and leverage it. And we're not there yet. I could leverage this Monday or whatever. Tuesday, the markets are closed. I probably won't trade Monday. So we start to go up. We pivot off this high node. So we actually get a mid pivot off that POC. I fucking tell you guys. Come back down. Now, if I caught that this is becoming support and resistance, then I might consider longing it. And then I know that there's a good chance we could potentially go through this high node. I would want to scale up here for sure at this other high node. Now, this has a volcano top, and hypothetically, that's a gap. And what does that mean? That would be this, which I don't ever do intraday. But for those of you who know what gaps are, we're getting very advanced here. Hypothetically, this would be a gap play. I don't do intraday plays. They do work, however. It is a volcano top, so it pivots that high node, so we could leverage this gap and run it through. Depends, again, what the other markets are doing, and we want to scale gap edge for gap plays. Again, that's a whole nother module. And then we would want to scale. See, this is me putting it all together. You kind of have to. And then scaling at this high node for sure. Definitely want to scale. So if I know the support resistance flip is holding, and the closer we get to the mean, the more likely I'm like, oh, you know, we mid pivoted here. Somewhere over here, it's like, okay, this is getting close. What are the other marketers doing? This high node could hypothetically tractor beam and pull it all in. So hypothetically at this point, I want to get in. And since it mid pivoted, that gives me confidence to hold it and get a gap jump and then scale there. This is so many components, but this is me interlacing different setups together, and I've created a narrative based off the price action. That's how it all connects, guys. So then it goes through. Could the gap stay there? Absolutely. Now, here's the deal. We could hold the other shit on since it did bottom tick here. Since the bottom tick was the last thing and it was a clean bottom tick off of a low node, and we know this is a bigger range and a bigger curve, this is an example. And I didn't take these trades, and I just want to let you know by doing this, I'm learning a lot from this specific session where I'm like, holy shit. I came in around the afternoon because I fucking sleep like shit and I miss most mornings, which sucks. I gotta fix that problem. But I have very bad insomnia, and I've yet to figure out how to fix it, and I've had it all my life. And I literally stayed up till 6 in the morning. So had to sleep in. Otherwise, I'll trade like shit. So, but still, you know, this is good shit. I have problems, guys. I'm not a perfect person. That reminds me of that Hoobastank song, if you guys remember it. So hypothetically, you know, there could be a top tick. We could wait for that top tick, which would be right here. There's the top tick. I would go full flat. I may not think there could be a run. Now, with my prep, there could be other shit up here. So I could potentially hold, but for the sake of what we're seeing now, scale it here because it could come back in. And if we got in or right in this area because of the support and resistance and we're close to the mean and it mid-pivoted and now I have all this context, that's still a relatively good trade. I mean, hypothetically, you know, you scale some for what, 23 ticks, and then you hit the top tick right there. Get out at the top tick, and then that's a 40 tick run. That's a great fucking trade. You don't need all of these ticks. And then get out. Just get out. Yeah, I kept fucking going, but did you know that was going to happen? Probably not. Now, in my prep series, there could be shit up there that'd be like, hey, this is going to keep going. But for the sake of this, and there she goes. Now notice she's starting to create more of a value zone, right? So what are we going to do? Since it's doing that, what we're going to do is dial this curve back in. Well, really, we want to keep the whole RTH session and keep it going. But what we're gonna want to do is draw a curve from, because there's clearly a larger range here, or good range at that. So what we want to do is like draw another curve, overshoot it, and then I'm gonna bring in both edges to get that bell curve shape. So we want to nip off some of this price down here, right about there. And then we want to lop off all this bullshit where it starts just going up to about right where that top tick was. Now, it's not the best curve, and it's because of what happened here, and there was all this reloading and absorption. But if that wasn't there, it would be a good curve. And this is where you kind of have to have experience and skill. And this is where in my prep, you're going to learn where, like, some of you will be like, nah, fuck that. Well, in my prep, I'd be like, yeah, do it. And this is why. This is why the prep is like just continuing education of what you're seeing here. Now, do I teach it at this level? No, because I'm full on trying to teach you guys a thing or two here. And this is where, like, at this level, it becomes a course. I got to get paid for this shit. Because this has gone on for an hour and 38 fucking minute. This is going to be a very popular video. So we would draw that out. And then we would come up here. And we want to know, how long did this go on for? Well, it went from 9:40-ish to 11:40. So what did I say? 8:40 to what? 11:40? So 9:40, 10:40, 11:40. So this is a 3-hour curve. And there's a good chance that if it does go through, it could be, I mean, we need to make sure it tests and fails the top edge of it. But once it goes through, it may overshoot and just continue going down. It may not. It really depends what's happening in the other markets. But I'm going to modify this, put EV0 and put 3H for 3 hours. Because it's yet to been tested on the top end. And then there she goes. And we want to continue to draw this out. What do we want to do here? Well, we're going to want to copy and adjust the drawing. And we know that there is a low node cluster right here in this section. And what I would probably do is just kind of mark, because these are all equally like low nodes. And now there's a new distribution zone being put up in play here. However, there's a new range right there. And then what do? We draw that right there, because that's probably a good actually, we did. This is where we started. and watch the beginning of the video to know what happened up here. And what does it fucking do, guys? What does it do when it comes into mid fucking pivot, for fuck's sakes? Mid pivots, those high, the point of control comes out. Then what we can do is go here, modify text, EV1, and then we want to put mid roll. Mid pivot, mid roll, same shit, right? We got a series of low nodes. Oh, Jesus Christ, they're holding. Then it comes back in, and then it's in there now. Now, I don't want to trade it on these high nodes. Oh, and a gap jump, too. But you wouldn't want to trade that first go, to be honest with you. Now, the reason it drove down so far was because there was a range here that went on from 1232 to 3. So what, 2.5 hours? What did I say in this video? The longer a range goes on, the more extreme the blowout would be. I wouldn't want to trade this blowout because it's at the close. But this is auction market theory. This is the life of price action. This goes to show you that price action simply isn't as random as you think. Ranges finds price discovery, like it creates fair value, ranges, breaks out, that's price discovery, goes to a prior value area, or it creates a new one. So now we have structure. This is why volume profile is so important, because without it, see, this is like my charts are drawing on the other thing. Without it, just price bars isn't enough. But now that we have structure, we know that there's areas where heavier volume traded. If you guys looked at this micro range without a profile, you wouldn't realize how like fucked up the absorption is there. Now that we have a curve there, it's like, hey, there's a lot of goddamn absorption that happened there. And that gives me that tells me a story. And with that story, I can lean into it to get into a setup, and that having a story in a trading system, it allows me to be more confident. So that right there is like everything pretty much. Now, obviously, there's higher time frame shit going in the 10-minute chart and the 240-minute chart. And there's just all this higher time frame shit. And then you have the 3-hour chart or 3-hour profile that's overlaid on top of that. And then that, but for the most part, it's the same shit. And there you go. You know the whole trading system. Obviously, I need to keep making modules because it all continues to get more and more and more and more fucking complex, but that's how I make better quality trading fucking decisions, because of the complexities. Because if trading really was that easy, and the fucking thing about, oh, you should explain your edge in 5 minutes, that's all bullshit. It should take you a very long time to explain this shit. Otherwise, if it was that easy, the failure rate wouldn't be that high. Come on. Common sense, guys. So now we know. Now we know what has happened in this session. And now we know we have a value zone up there. So, and then this is what the curve would look like. The entire RTH session. Yeah, it has a little bit of the overnight. And for those of you who are cutting the overnight session off, you're fucking yourself, because auction market theory and all these levels and shit play out in the overnight, and you shouldn't do that. Okay? And there you go. That's the full structure of the goddamn thing. In fact, if we zoom in on it, there's a huge amount of low nodes. In fact, since it puked, we would have to start adjusting all these low nodes out to kind of understand where the low node section is. And there you go. Now there's something up there, which I will draw in prep. But anyways, guys, I'll probably be drawing this in prep as well. And for those of you who want more of this, there you go. Sign up. It'll be a good time, and the more people that sign up, the more I want to do this shit. And there you go. You guys are giving back to the fucking community, and that makes this channel a lot fucking better, and you guys are learning more. Did you guys learn a lot from this? Please let me know in the comment section. This is a fucking... This right here could have been paid materials. You guys would have gladly paid $20 for this. And you know, there you go. So you can buy prep or give me $3 for this really high quality explanation of volume profiles. This is the updated version to the old versions that I made years and years ago. And this is my trading system as well. And profile structure is honestly, it's like driving a car, right? If we're going up a fucking hill and the engine cuts off, it might go backwards, right? It's gravitational force, and you need good price action to match with good curves, and you need good looking curves. Otherwise, if you have a bell curve, but the price action doesn't quite look right, it doesn't quite look rangy, then it's not a good trade, if that makes sense. All right, guys, I will see you in the next one. Peace.